Okay, I think we've got everything under control. Nick, are we looking good?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, perfect. The stream has started. Sorry about that technical difficulties, everyone, but welcome. Hi, my name is Hennessy. I am the communications manager here at FilmConvert, and I am so excited to be bringing you the first in our new live streaming series, Color Grading for Wedding Videographers. So we're going to be talking to some of the best wedding videographers from all around the world. We're going to be talking to some of the best wedding videographers from all around the world and getting to learn more about their process and how they can create that perfect look for their videos. And I'm so excited about our first guest today. He is a destination wedding videographer all the way from Colorado, Stanton Giles. So Stanton has been able to grow his destination wedding videography business over the course of 2 years, and his whole resume is so impressive. He's done shoots in Athens and Norway and even recently by a volcano, which is so cool. And now he has a YouTube channel that is dedicated to helping teach people all about destination wedding videography, as well as how to get that perfect grade. And I'm so excited to have him here joining us today. So thank you so much for joining us, Stanton. How are you?
Well, it's a pleasure, Hennessy. I am amazing. It is the afternoon here in Denver, Colorado, and it's the morning where you're at. So I'm super excited to be talking about this. People think it's cheesy when I say this, but I love wedding videography. And so any chance that I get to come on and talk about my process, to talk about my story, to talk about how I do things, and to kind of pour into other people, because I was poured into when I started, is really fun for me, and it's really fulfilling, and it's really life-giving. So I'm just appreciative and excited to be on here and talking with you and talking to the people watching the stream.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. It honestly is such a pleasure, especially because you are so incredible at what you do. And for those of you that don't really know you, what is it that you do exactly, and how did you get into it?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, thanks. I appreciate it. That's humbling. So I'm a destination wedding videographer, and over the years, and as you said, I have been doing it longer than 2 years, but whenever she was saying, took it from 0 to 100 in 2 years, that was kind of hitting off the fact that when I started, I had a goal in mind of where I wanted my business to be and what I wanted to be filming. And so over the course of the first 2 years, that's where I really honed and crafted my business to be what it is today. And, we're always iterating, we're always transitioning, but like, to kind of put it in a nutshell, I'm a destination wedding videographer. I live in a destination for a lot of people here in the United States, coming out to Colorado. We got the Rocky Mountains out here, Aspen, Colorado. I'm going to be showing some stuff from Aspen today, actually, getting eloped up in the mountains out here, but also I do international stuff. I go to Mexico a lot. I've been to Iceland, Norway, Austria, Bali, different things like that. Wedding videography has taken me some really cool places, and that's what I wanted it to be in the beginning. So before I did wedding videography, I was actually an engineer. That's what I went to school for. That's what I did after school. And so, 4 years of school, 2 years of engineering. To make a long story short, I wasn't fulfilled doing that. And I think I got into engineering because I liked problem solving and I liked the creative idea of it, but tangibly so in the industry that I was kind of shifting into, I wasn't able to really manifest that side of things. It was more cut and dry. I wasn't Isaac Newton or Galileo figuring out things anymore. It was all like Excel, tabulation stuff. And it was boring for me. And so, again, to make a long story short, I ended up getting out of that after moving out of the country and coming back. I did stumble into the creative field of photography and videography. And my best friend asked me to film his wedding. I said no at the beginning because that's the cliche thing that all videographers do. You're like, oh, you get a camera. How do I make money? Oh, you film your friend's wedding. But I did it. In the beginning, I didn't want to be doing it, but when I did it, I loved it because I realized it had meaning and it had something that was going to be around for a long time. But also, I realized I could do it my own way, and I didn't have to do it like everybody else. So that's kind of been the branch off of what I do. I do a lot of destination weddings, so there's kind of a dichotomy between I do like crazy high energy party weddings in Tulum, Mexico, or Cabo, or even here in the States. But then I'll do very intimate weddings up in, the mountains of Montana, up here in the Rocky Mountains in the United States, where it's like the most intimate, beautiful vows I've ever seen written. And, it's just a tearjerker scene, or it's like a mixture of just like epic Iceland volcano hiking, wind, hair blowing everywhere, like whatever it is. And that's kind of like the fun thing about like what I do is I'm not limited to a certain style. What I really enjoy is the editing and making a film look a certain way based off the scenery and like the area and what the couple manifests themselves as, because every couple is different in their own regard. And so that means that you shouldn't have a cookie cutter film. So anyway, I could keep talking about that, but that's kind of me in a nutshell. I do lots of different kinds of things. I travel a lot. I'm very grateful for what I do, and I find a lot of fulfillment in it, and I really like it. So yeah.
Oh, that's so good to hear. And I feel like wedding videography is something quite interesting because a lot of people don't really realize how much significance it can have, because, you're capturing someone's whole like special day and they get to have those memories forever. So what specifically made you want to get into destination wedding videography though?
Yeah, good question. So when I moved out of the country, I was actually at an orphanage in Honduras. And when I was at this orphanage, working there, volunteering there, whatever, I had to leave every 90 days to go on these visa trips because I wasn't a citizen. And so when I would do this, I would go to different places like Guatemala, Costa Rica, Belize, Panama. And during that time, because I had picked up a camera and a drone and kind of things on my, like, I did like a little trip right before I went to Honduras after I quit engineering. I found that I really enjoyed it. And so when I'd go on these visa trips to leave the country, I would make these little travel videos, and I found out I really liked making them. I liked filming them. I like editing them. My Facebook friends that I would post it back then, they loved watching them and stuff. And I was really encouraged in the beginning. And so I found that I really liked doing travel stuff. And so enter wedding videography when I came back to the States, when my best friend asked me. And, I very easily could have stayed in that, but I had to figure out how to kind of transition into something that my heart feels alive doing, and also doing something that's fulfilling. Because to be honest, for me, making travel films is cool and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about looking cool. You're not making something, to me, of importance that's going to like be an heirloom, that's going to be a legacy, that's like showing people preserved in time. It's kind of about looking cool. And so like, I kind of like combining the idea of having, my clients, my brides and grooms look cool in these travel destination weddings in Yosemite and Iceland and wherever it might be, like combine the two of them. And that's why like I wanted to get into this and kind of homogenize the two into something that's unique and my own. And there's lots of destination wedding videographers, and like, not to say that like I am special or unique, but like I do try to make, like, again, like the film's unique for the couple. And that sometimes makes me want, I feel like that's an eye roller in the wedding industry, because so many people say, oh, like custom, unique, handcrafted films. That's like the most cliche thing on any photographer, videographer website or anything like that. But like, I don't think that everybody always means it. And I think it's really important to like try to make films different and not just pick a song, not just slap on like audio, but like to really dive in and make it unique. Show the location that they picked, like show this place that they planned for years to go get married at. And then, incorporate that into their vows and into like telling the story of their day. That's a lot of fun to me. And so, yeah, that's kind of why I do it. And, that's how I kind of got into it. And that's what's keeping me going.
Yeah, because you're so right. There's a lot more that goes into it than just pointing a camera at a bride and groom and that being the end of the day, because you've really got to take into consideration the couple's wants as well as also your own personal style. And I think like you've done a really great job of being able to have a distinct style that you have in your shoots, but also at the same time, giving the couples creative freedom as well. And that's a really difficult thing. So good job. But do you have a favorite shoot so far that you've done?
It's so hard to pick because I feel like there's so many amazing, I feel like there's a lot more that goes into it sometimes than just location. I'm very drawn to like the Nordic area of the world, Iceland, Norway, Faroe Islands, like all of that stuff. But I've had some of the most incredible brides and grooms get married in like just a regular wedding in like, you know, Nashville, Tennessee or something like that. Like, and I think those are the ones that really stick out to me, is like the really excited couples, like the one that I'm going to show you today. I haven't edited this film, but I've looked through and I really just like how it looked and how it turned out. The bride was, I call her the happiest bride that I've ever had. She was just so excited all day, beautiful, just like so thankful to be there on her wedding day, getting married in Aspen. And like that stuff is what sticks out to me. And so I feel like my inclination is to kind of speak out of like a place that like, also if you see something walking around or hear something, it's my dog. He's restless right now. He's an 11-month-old puppy. So just, you know, just, you might hear that, but hey, go lay down, dude. But like, I think that like, if I had to pick a favorite location, it did happen recently. It was the Iceland volcano elopement that you kind of like hit on earlier. And it's kind of funny. I'm actually going back to Iceland in 2 weeks for another elopement. It's not at the volcano, but we are going to the volcano. But that was just so cool. I mean, like I've never seen anything in nature that made me teary-eyed when I saw it. I like the volcano. I tell myself and tell people that like talk to me about it afterward. I'm like, the volcano is the coolest thing I have seen or ever will see, unless an alien is riding an asteroid in like into our atmosphere. I don't know what's going to top me filming an elopement at a volcano. Like this, the raw nature, the power of like the danger that you felt like being there. This is a brand new volcano that just spurted up out of the earth. And I'm standing on a hill looking at it like, what's to say it's not going to shoot out of the hill I'm on right now? And the wind and the heat and the sound of it and stuff. It was just really, really cool. And I'm excited to be going back. So as far as location, that was my favorite, but it's hard to pinpoint it with couples just because like everybody's so amazing. I have the best brides and grooms. So not to like sound cliche or whatever, but I really do. I work with some amazing couples. And so like, I don't want anybody to think that like I have like a favorite couple or something. That would just be a favorite location. Long answer. Sorry, but.
Oh, that's so good. Because also like, who else can really say that their job took them to a volcano? That's so cool. But what is the process of organizing one of these shoots? Because do you come up with a lot of the ideas for the destination or like the types of shots you're going to get? Or is it more a collaboration with the bride and the groom? Like what is the whole kind of process of how you go to plan one of your shoots?
Yeah. It's a mixture, I would say, of that, of the two, of like kind of planning out shots beforehand and also collaborating. It depends sometimes on how much the bride and groom want me to insert myself into their day. But you know, it also, it like, it's awesome to be able to go in beforehand. Like, well, I'm just going to use this Iceland, elopement as an example. Like they saw some films of mine and they were excited for me to be their wedding videographer. They didn't choose a photographer to come with them. It was just a wedding videographer, which is flattering. It was nice. And, you know, they liked the way my films look. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. Like, I'm excited that you do. Here's what we can do to achieve this style of thing. So it's multiple days of shooting. Like there's times like where I'm just filming organic stuff happening. And then there's times where I'm like, okay, like, let's have some fun with this. It's just us out here. Let's set up a little scene. And so like, if you watch my Iceland teaser film, like there's this little scene of them out there in front of the car and they're like holding a phone up and I'm filming them with my video camera holding a phone up. And then I switch to the phone from my camera, if this makes sense, and show their perspective. And they're having an organic moment on screen while I'm kind of staging it at the same time. And so I'll like kind of pitch these things to them. And then sometimes I'll go into, like I'll be inspired by other DPs and stuff like that on Vimeo or YouTube. And I could draw a lot of inspiration. There's something about like the automotive industry that's like really exciting to me. So like you might see like, I love filming couples in cars. Like my couple that is getting married in Iceland in 2 weeks or so, they have like a Defender up there. And it's just this big, white, beautiful vehicle that, like I said, your video might look like a car commercial. And I was kidding, but like, that's something that like, we're all super excited about. They got it because of the aesthetic and stuff like that. So it really depends. I do a lot of pre-planning in my head as far as shots. My engineering background, and this is something I wanted to kind of hit on, it kind of spawned, like the whole premise of engineering is problem solving, is like, you know, it's just figuring out how to solve a problem. And so I've kind of carried that over into wedding videography when I first got into it. And I would look at other wedding filmmakers' films and I would say, wow, they are really good how am I going to get my stuff to look that good? Because and this is something, it's a thing I say over and over again with wedding videography, with filmmaking, you don't have to be LeBron James. You don't have to be Michael Jordan that was born with certain genetics and practice for 30 years to get to the point that they're at. Like, you can use your brain and you can figure out how to hold this electronic device in a certain angle, a certain distance from your subject, and your subject being in a certain light. And you can figure out how to be a professional at this and to have good things. And so that's been my insatiable journey that I've been on, and I still am. I'm trying to figure out how to get better, and I feel like that's contributed to me getting better over the years. It's fun to look back and compare like my Iceland film from my Iceland teaser film from a month ago to like my first ever Iceland wedding that I did back in 2018. So like it's fun to see the progress of different things like that. So yeah. That's kind of what I would say as far as like, it's, I think I got a little bit rabbit traily there at the end, but yeah, that's kind of what I do. The couple that typically they're super on board because they love my films. They love bringing me into their wedding, and I enjoy that a lot. I also like letting them have their organic moments. I'm not going to interrupt you while you're saying your vows. Like, I'm going to capture that. And if I want to get a different shot, that like I might have you like stand back up there for like 30 seconds and I capture that shot. Some people might think that's inserting yourself too much, but I think it's worth it when 60 years down the road, you have a really cool tight shot of your vow book or something like that. But I can't get that when you're saying your vows because I'm on your face. I'm getting you doing it. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
No, you're so right though, because especially like that is a big thing, and I feel like that is a large amount of people's concern is if wedding videographers were to insert themselves too much into the whole day and kind of take away sort of the naturalness of it. But I feel like that's not what you're doing as well. You're just capturing the organic moments, and you're so right in saying that it should be a collaborative effort, but also seeing your growth as you go along as well, because everyone's always learning. And I think that's something important, is like with every different shoot that you're going to be doing, you're going to learn something different from a new couple, whether it be a new location, and different perspectives. And that's really amazing. And with all of that kind of in mind now, what would you say your personal style is when it comes to these sort of videos? Because obviously if you're shooting in a whole bunch of different locations, do you have kind of one particular style that you like to try and go for all of your shots? Or does it all depend on who you're shooting and where you're shooting?
Yeah, man, you're chock full of some great questions. So my logo, like my icon, if you go to my website, Films by Stanton, it's a lion holding a rose in his mouth. It's kind of like it's even kind of like my mantra of life, but like I believe contrast is a really big thing. I think contrast is what makes life beautiful. You go on a hike and then you're really excited to go back to your house and rest, but when you're at your house, you're like, oh, I want to go out and go do a hike, kind of a thing. And it's like, when you're full, you don't want to eat anymore, but when you're hungry, you're like, you want to eat. And it's that contrast between different things. And so like the contrast between like this lion holding this rose in his mouth is kind of like how I go about my wedding videography stuff. It's bold but beautiful. Like there's a beautiful side to it, and then there's this bold side. I make some really crazy wedding films. Like my Ricky and Sarah Tulum video is a very outlandish. There's like pop art, there's graphic things on screen. It looks like Project X, and that was kind of emblematic of their wedding. It was crazy. It was fun. It was so much fun to create. But then again, like I said, you have these really intimate Montana elopements, like Montana, up here in the United States, up in the mountains, and it's just them and their mom crying and like their brothers weeping because they're the only 4 people up there or something like that. And then it's these beautiful vows. And so then I crafted around that. I would say I don't have a particular style of film. I would say that my heart is really drawn to making cinematic films. I'm very drawn to cinematic music, and I think that's a big inspiration behind a lot of my films. But then it's a nice breather to be able to go in and like right now I'm making another Tulum teaser from back in August, very out there, like teaser film. It's going to be a lot different. And so, there is, like I said, a dichotomy. There's a paradigm between my styles, but as far as shooting style, I would say that the way I shoot is pretty similar with only a few different things. Like if I'm filming, a Montana elopement, I'm going to be shooting it very slow movements and stuff like that. But if I'm filming a whole bridal party or something in Tulum taking shots or something like that, I'm going to be using like faster camera movements. I'm going to do whip pans and camera so that I can like edit those together and stuff. But I'm not doing that whenever, I'm editing, like a really intimate elopement or something like that. So hopefully that makes sense.
No, that definitely does. And I feel like that provides some really good insight as well, because if you were to also kind of shoot everything in the same way, I don't know, for me it just wouldn't be like as exciting, you know, and at least you get to try new things and see what works and what doesn't work as well. And again, keep growing and keep performing. And what is your go-to gear that you shoot with? Because obviously you love the cinematic look. What are the tools that help you achieve that?
Totally. So I shoot on the Sony a7S III. It's just I chose Sony in the beginning. I'm really glad I chose Sony because it's just been stellar to shoot with. Sorry, everybody, but if you don't shoot on Sony, I will be talking about that today at some point when going over stuff. But so I shoot on Sony a7S III. I shoot on all Zeiss glass. I shoot on 90% prime lenses, fixed, focal length stuff. I have a zoom lens for like different scenarios and things, but I shoot handheld. So I have I have a cage on my Sony a7S III. I have a small rig wooden handle coming off the side. I have a monitor, a small HD 7-inch monitor sitting on top of that with two MPF 970s sitting on it. And I'm actually coming out with a YouTube video in the next couple of days about my solo shooting rig. So that will be on my channel. Shameless plug. I was supposed to come out with it last week, but I've been busy. Sorry, everyone. But then I have the reason I choose to shoot handheld, and a lot of people tend to shy away from it, is because people think handheld is not going to be smooth shots. So like between the Sony a7S III having in-body stabilization, my Zeiss glass having stabilization within the lens, me having this handle on the side of the rig to hold on to, instead of it's like this holding onto a camera, it's like this, a little bit more solid. And then I have I think the most important piece is I have a Peak Design strap that I strap around here. It goes underneath. Instead of going around my neck on both sides, I actually have one go underneath my armpit. And then I pull the whole, if everybody listening can envision this with me, I pull the whole rig away from me. And so it's creating tension, and it's creating another point for for stabilization basically. So I'm pushing away from myself, not pushing hard, but pulling away from myself to create that. But between those three, being able to slow it down in post and then use stabilization in post, if you're not jacked up on caffeine or something like that, you should be okay. Afterwards, I typically find myself being able to stabilize anything that I shoot slow motion. I think the biggest thing that a lot of wedding videographers are getting wrong is they get on these gimbals. Gimbals are great situationally. I'll use them in cars. I'll use them hiking and stuff like that. I have gimbals and I love them, but I choose to shoot handheld because I feel like gimbals limit creativity. You are so focused on stabilizing this camera that you're holding this kind of goofy rig, this thing that's, it's like a motorized thing that you have to hold in a certain way. Your legs are in a certain way. You have to get in a certain position to get the certain composition. And actually, I feel like composition is compromised because you're so focused on getting this movement down with this gimbal to make it do the right thing. And so with my handheld rig, I can get up really high. I can get down really low. I can move where I want to get super easy. I can just drop it around my neck because I have the thing on. I'm much more creatively inspired shooting handheld instead of having this gimbal. A gimbal's I'm hiking, things are jostling. I'm going to use it on that, and maybe compromise composition. But I found my composition and my films have gotten so much better since I switched over to a handheld rig because I'm not worried. Gimbal is basically for those I feel like that are worried about stabilization, when stabilization really isn't if you just focus and practice on your camera rig handheld, it's going to look a lot better than you think. It's going to look more natural than you think because even Hollywood has shakiness in it. If you look at it, a lot of camera shots are shaky. These TV shows, Breaking Bad, I see it all the time. Camera shots are shaky, and I'm like, why do we freak out in the wedding industry about stabilization? We should probably relax a little bit. So that's something I'm passionate talking about, the whole gimbal handheld rig, thing. So that's kind of my shooting style. That's kind of what I shoot with.
No, that's very interesting. And I never really thought about the gimbal argument like that, but I'll take that into consideration. But you know what? Speaking of post-production, what do you use to edit? And also, what is your process for color grading? Who would have thought we would have been bringing that up? It's so crazy, right?
It's funny that you bring that up because, in regards to color grading, I do use FilmConvert. So that's a coincidence. No, but so post-production, I use Premiere Pro. I know a lot of you might cringe out there because it doesn't look as pretty as Final Cut and stuff like that. But I find Premiere Pro to be a much more fluid powerful interface than Final Cut. Not here to argue about that, but it's just, I think it's all you throw what you know kind of a thing. Like, you know, you get better at what you've learned from the beginning, whether it's Sony or, you know, speaking English compared to Spanish, or, you know, you learning Premiere Pro instead of Final Cut. And so I use Premiere Pro. I edit everything in there. As far as color grading, I found myself not doing as much as I used to, because ever since Sony released S-Cinetone and its prosumer cameras, you know, not the FX line, but like, you know, in the A7 line, you can get it on A7 III, A7, you know, S3, that kind of stuff. It's the most beautiful camera profile I've ever seen. And I like to call it Rec 709 and S-Log 2 or 3 hybrid. It's not super crunchy. It's not super flat, but it gives this beautiful, smooth look throughout, like your shadows to your highlights. You know, whenever it's super dark and you have low luminance and I'm going to get into this a little bit here in a second, but like when you have low luminance, you're not seeing super crazy contrast levels, super low contrast levels. It actually adds contrast to that in a really beautiful way. And then whenever you're super bright or something like that, it's not crushing certain things. There's a lot lower contrast, which makes it a lot easier to grade. And so I just find it like, I really just go in and I slap a little FilmConvert nitrate on there. And that's really what I do. Like, I don't color grade a ton anymore. And so that's what I'm excited to kind of get into today, is to kind of like show part of my process of like how I achieve the look in my films. Color grading falls into the category of that insatiable desire to get better, because that's a huge part of making your films look good, is the color in your films. And so that's been something when I look at certain wedding videographers or other DPs on Vimeo or YouTube, Filmmaker, Hollywood, whatever it is, I'm like, how do they get that color? And by no means am I a professional color grader, but I think that's the beauty of FilmConvert Nitrate, is that you don't have to be a professional color grader. You know, as wedding videographers, as you know, your average filmmaker, even if you're a DP or something like that, you find yourself like, well, putting aside the DP thing for a second, but like you find yourself having to be a jack of all trades. You have to have all your gear. You have to know all the gear, and then you have to prep all the gear, and then you have to be there on time the day of the wedding or the shoot. And then you have to shoot it. Then you have to offload it, and then you have to edit it, and then you have to put sound into it and pick the music, and then you got to color grade it and export it. And you are wearing all the hats. And so you don't have time to be a professional and everything. Hollywood has people that they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to professionally color grade these things. And so like FilmConvert bridges that gap. I think it bridges the gap to where I like to call FilmConvert a customizable LUT. Like, you know, you throw a LUT on in Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro, and you got an intensity slider. And it's basically 0 to 100. You can go up to 200 or something. You can crunch the hell out of it. But like, you have so much customization inside of FilmConvert Nitrate, and that's the beauty of it. And I think it's even better than like what you can do with Premiere Pro. And so that's kind of like what I'm excited to get into here in a little bit.
Oh, it's so nice being able to hear that our product has been able to help people's career and really find their style and their workflow. So I'm so stoked that it has worked well for you and that you love using it for your grades. And was wondering, would you like to take us through one of your grades now?
Let's do it. I am ready. Let's see. So I'm going to switch this over to where you guys can see me and my screen for a second. So just bear with me while I like switch over this finicky software here. But yeah, so basically I've prepared, it kind of squishes my camera a little bit, but I think it's worth it. We'll start that. One. Okay, now that's going. Now I'll share my screen. Thank you guys for your patience. Share. Okay, does that look like it's working? And to see, is that
yes, that's working.
Showing up on you? Okay, cool. Okay, so here I am, a little squeezed and a little whatever, but I feel like it's kind of nice to watch somebody talking instead of just staring at a screen. So here's Premiere Pro. Here is what I'm going to be walking you guys through here now. I have pulled this was actually what I was talking about earlier. She was like the happiest bride I've ever had. And she was just so excited. Beautiful bride, beautiful venue, excited family, all of that. And so like everything was just great this day. And I have like a couple different lighting scenarios that apply to wedding videographers throughout the day. So basically I'm going to have like bridal prep, which is literally like my favorite thing to film, getting awesome makeup shots and stuff like that. And then I have like a groom shot of the groom getting ready in front of a video or in front of a window. I have some detail shots I'm going to show you guys. I have a ceremony shot, a drone shot, and then like a portrait, and then like a backlight shot. So I kind of want to show you guys a shot from each different kind of thing during the wedding day. You know, and I can't show you everything like stuff like this. This one was more of like a quasi elopement, a wedding style thing. Show you guys how to use FilmConvert in different scenarios. And so I like before I dive in, like I got some notes. You see me looking over it here. I just want to talk about why FilmConvert. Why are we using FilmConvert? Why do we want to convert what we have to looking like film? I believe the answer is because we have trained ourselves and we have grown as like a society and people. We watch movies. We watch movies and we've been trained by Hollywood that uses film, that is what looks good. And that's okay. And I think that's awesome. And I think it's cool that we want to achieve that look. And so if you notice, and I did a tutorial on FilmConvert in one of my YouTube videos. Fellowship of the Ring. Oh, can you guys hear me? I just got like a notification that my mic changed. Just give me a little head nod there, Hennessy, if you. Okay, good. It just freaked out for a second. In that trilogy, those are all filmed on film, and they look really filmed on film, but that's what they are. They're, you know, it was film, and then, you know, when you have The Hobbit, it was filmed on a digital camera, and so it looked different, and it didn't look as real. It looked like CGI, and granted, they did use a lot more CGI in that, but film is a very familiar, natural look to us in the same way that we shoot in 24 frames per second, 23.976 frames per second. Like that's what is closest to our eye, and that's what we're closest to seeing in Hollywood. And so that's why we do that. And so like I said, I feel like we've trained ourselves to like the film look. And I like to call FilmConvert like a customizable LUT. And so when I dive in here in FilmConvert Nitrate, which is an upgrade from FilmConvert Pro, and I'll kind of dive into that difference there a little bit too. You have so much customization. So I don't know if you guys have used FilmConvert before or if you haven't, but I'm going to be diving into like all the different things that you can do in it and how to kind of like manipulate your image. And so just off the cuff, I haven't put FilmConvert on any of these shots yet. Like, you know, I want to show you guys, and I promise I haven't, because I want to show you guys, like, I haven't tested this footage. I haven't gone through and like picked the perfect shots. I picked stuff with good lighting. But like I want to show you guys the process of figuring out how to make your images look good. And that's something that I think is easy to forget as an editor, is you don't have to figure it out your first try. That the editing suite, nobody else is seeing what you're doing. And so you can take the time to go in there and say, ooh, like that didn't look good when I first put that on there. Okay, what can I do to make it better? And that's the whole process. That's editing, that's problem solving. And that's like what I want to invite you guys into, is like FilmConvert, immediately you slap it on, it's probably going to make your stuff look better than out of camera. It's going to make it look more filmic, which is a desirable look, but you can do so much after that to make your films look better. And so that's kind of what I want to dive into. It's an upgrade from FilmConvert, and we'll be showing kind of like a difference between the interface and like why it's so much better. Like I said, so anything I'm going to be showing you here today is shot on the Sony a7S III, Zeiss glass, and S-Cinetone profile, which is pretty awesome. I love shooting on S-Cinetone. It's so beautiful. Like sometimes I'm like, what do I even need to do to this shot right now? I like how it looks right now, but you know, we have some room with tools like FilmConvert to make it look cooler. So yeah, I want to kind of dive into that. So kind of this interface here, you got FilmConvert Nitrate. I already got it pulled up. You know, you can go download that or buy that from their website, but you know, you just drag that onto the clip, and don't freak out because initially it's not going to look that great, but there it is when you first slap it on. And so like this is the interface that you're going to be looking at FilmConvert on. Let me just give this a little more room. You guys don't need to see my timeline and stuff. It'd be better if we watch this big anyway. So this is the interface for FilmConvert, and you have all these different things you can do inside of it. And I'll go ahead and run down each of them, and then I'll break them down individually. So you have your camera settings. And the cool thing about FilmConvert Nitrate, and same thing as FilmConvert Pro, but you can go into FilmConvert, and you can actually go onto their website and download what they call camera packs. That it's individualized looks that correspond with FilmConvert to kind of complement the camera that you shot on. So if you're shooting on Red, Panasonic, Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever it might be, you can go onto there, you can download that camera pack and all the looks for it. So like, and again, I'll dive into that in a second. But so you have that camera settings thing, you have exposure dials, temperature, tint, stuff like that. Then you get into like your film stock, which is like the actual analog medium that like film was recorded on over the years. And so like, you know, these are, you got Fujifilm, you got Kodak, you got all these different things. You got black and white, different film stocks that people shot on, 19 different ones here in FilmConvert Nitrate that you can use. And that's a wide range. Again, it's like a customizable LUT. You can do so much with this stuff. But anyway, going back from that, you can change the level of the color manipulation that film stock manipulates your image to look like. You can change, you know, how it, manipulates your contrast levels between your shadows, your highlights. You can change the film size because there's different sizes of film. We'll get into that too. Something really cool about FilmConvert Nitrate is the grain response curve over your exposure values. We'll get into that. Then you also got color correction, which Premiere Pro has over here. I'm blocking it, but we don't want to see that anyway because we're talking about FilmConvert. But like you have all these color correction sliders, which are way better than Premiere's anyway. Then you have your curves, which I personally like to use a lot sometimes, and then like fine tune with my dials or my wheels here. Then you got your levels. For some reason, it's not showing up. There we go. It has your levels, exposure levels with your RGB exposure level over your exposure range from 0 to 100 on the IRE scale. And then you got standard controls. I don't really dip into that too much, but it's more of just like, it's almost like basic correction inside of Premiere Pro. And so it's like, this is a more basic standard way of doing things. So anyway, going back to the top, you have your camera settings. And so you go into here, and so like, there's like a basic one that it has as default, then your standard sRGB, and it's putting a Kodak 5207 Vis 3 film stock emulation over the top of it. So it's basically emulating what it would look like maybe if you shot this on that Kodak film stock. And so like, honestly, like it kind of looks cool like this. Like it might be a little bit blue underexposed right now, but again, we just threw it into the program and we don't have to freak out. We can problem solve and figure out how to make this look better. So I go into here. I want to make sure you guys can see this. There we go. Let's make this smaller because we're not going to be over there very much. I just want to make sure you can see the image too. So go into here, you can choose your camera. And so again, you need to download your camera pack. Super easy. When you download it, either a DMG or a zip file coming into you from Windows or Mac, and it just instantly installs. You restart your editor and it's right there. It's nothing complicated. You have to do like loading in LUTs or something. So I shoot on Sony. So I'm going to go down to my camera and I shoot on the A7S Mark III, and then I shoot in S-Cinetone. So I'm going to go into there and I'm going to apply that, and bam, that's a different look that it's going to have. So added some contrast, I think contrast is the biggest thing. It might have changed the exposure levels a little bit, kind of made it a little bit more warm, a little red, a little creepy. Not really liking how it's looking right now, but we can definitely change this stuff. So working our way, we go into the exposure, temperature, and tint sliders. And what's cool about this in FilmConvert Nitrate as opposed to FilmConvert Pro, when you enter in camera pack and when you enter in like what camera you shot on, the exposure and temperature sliders are going to behave native if you changed the temperature and exposure in that particular camera. And so that is extremely cool. That's something that wasn't offered before. That's something that isn't offered in like anything else that I know of. And that's cool because it's going to be a more familiar exposure response as you change your exposure. If you were changing your shutter speed or your aperture or your ISO or something like that, it's going to work with your camera. And that's about the limit of my knowledge on that. Like, I just know that that's a thing. I don't know the science of it and everything like that. I'm a nerd, but not that much. But I know that that is kind of how it works. So like, I'm going through here, I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, she's a little dark, and just like, little shameless plug here. I use this a lot. This is an IR. I'm not going to keep it on this screen And I know that woman's skin tones on the IRE scale are probably going to sit somewhere between 75 and 80, at most peaking at 80. So we're a little underexposed right now. I really suggest you guys maybe diving in, learning what, your IRE scale is going to do. This is obviously, it's like a left to right comparison of exposure and color. And so I look at this a lot. Anyway, I'm going to pull that off the screen. Without looking at that, I can tell that's a little bit underexposed. So just off the bat, there's 3 different ways you can do this in FilmConvert, but you can go in there and you can take your exposure levels up like that. So it's making her skin tones look a little bit more on par with what we're wanting it to look like. And again, let me say this real quick before I start. FilmConvert isn't going to solve all of your problems with making stuff look really good. So if you watch a filmmaker's films and you like how their stuff looks, or you like how my stuff looks, if you're looking at this in camera as I go through, I really like how these shots look straight out of camera. And the reason I like how those shots look is because of 3 things: the composition, the lighting, and how I'm exposing them in that lighting. This is not a camera that I'm taking a picture on. And although video quality is creeping toward that of a picture, and the bit depth that you can manipulate color and exposure in, we're not there yet. And so we really need to nail this in camera. You can't just be looking at it on a monitor and look at it, because a monitor on your camera is going to give you typically not accurate exposure levels. Look through the viewfinder on your camera, and I want you to absolutely nail your exposure to within 1/3 of a stop of what it should be and what you see with your eye. You just go back and forth between what your eye sees and what is on in your viewfinder. Your viewfinder blacks out everything. You don't have any outside light. That's the biggest single color grading tip that I could ever give anybody, is to nail it in camera and then go into FilmConvert and enhance what you've nailed. You can't make something that is terrible looking look amazing afterwards. Like if you didn't have good light, it's not going to look good. If you didn't nail your exposure and you're one stop overexposed, it's not going to look good. So you need to nail that. We're videographers. It's within our capabilities. We need to practice. We need to problem solve. So if I haven't mentioned it yet, I'm big on problem solving. So oh, sorry, buddy. Sorry. Kicked my dog in the face. Sorry, buddy. But anyway, so going in here, I'm raising in the exposure levels. You can kind of pick between, if I'm going to manipulate this color here, this kind of brown orange color that looks really crunchy, almost like a magenta color going on there, and her skin tones, you can either manipulate it down here, or you can kind of pull some of that out up here in your tint and exposure things. So I'm just going to go ahead and just play with that a little bit. I'm going to pull this a little bit and pull out some of that warmth sitting on her face. And I feel like it's a little bit in the shadow mid-tone area. It's sitting a little bit magenta right there. So I'm just going to pull this a little more green. So I feel like that adds a little more green right here in the highlight, and go back and fix that, almost like a teal color in the highlights, but that sometimes can be referred to as a cinematic look, like your orange teal look. So it's up to you guys. Again, we're not done here yet. All of this before I even pick a film stock that I want to go into and use on this. And so it's kind of fun to click through and see what each of these is going to do to that. Very stylized for this. That looks pretty warm right there. I'm just going to click through a couple more. That one looks kind of cool. I like how that one looks. The Fuji one, depends on, that one's pretty warm. I think this one was a little less warm. Yeah, had some different colors there in the shadows, which I kind of like right there. That looks cool. Some of the stuff looks really stylized, and sometimes we want that. So for now, one that I really like to use is this FJ8543VD. Whatever that means. Fujifilm film stock. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I'm just here trying to do the best I can while I'm juggling all these hats. So I'm going to pick this one for now. And then you go down to film chroma, and this is almost like where you're adjusting the intensity of a LUT. If you want to think about this film stock, which is the actual analog film medium that is when you think of film, it's like the actual one that is being printed on, or whatever you want to call it, exposed onto. That's what you're picking, one that this program is emulating. And so you can go in there and you can manipulate the intensity of what that looks like, from not having it on at all to having it completely full blown. And so I'm going to just dial that back a little bit. Film Luma now, you go in there and this is changing. If I go in here real quick, and I know I've changed exposure at this point, but you're seeing this. I'm trying to point at the screen while I'm talking, but you can see, look at her cheekbone right here. You're seeing exposure values and crunchiness, the contrast of this change, and on the makeup artist's hands right here. And so basically that this film stock, my exposure changes, stuff like that, by me choosing the A7S Mark III film, camera pack, changing all of this kind of stuff. And so if that looks too crunchy to you, you can go into here and you can kind of dial back on that. Now that looks way too faded, and sometimes people like a faded look, but I'm not super into that. So I'm gonna maybe come in here and get something like right there or something like that. So 63%, very arbitrary, but that's what I think looks good. And it's kind of like, we're not trying to just blast this image. I liked how it looks straight out of camera. And so I'm not going to like go ham with this thing. So anyway, moving on, film size. You can pick anything from like 8mm film size up to 35mm. Basically what you're changing is like the way that the grain looks on the screen, the size of the grain, and the softness of your image afterwards. So like, look at the softness. So this is 35mm right here. It's got a size of 4 for the grain and a softness of 0. It's not changing the sharpness of your video. But if I throw 8mm film, 8mm film size on there, holy soft. Like, that's like something that if you're wanting to go super stylized, you can do that if you want, but yuck, like that looks. Hello, hello. Weird. Okay. I don't know what happened. Can you open up? I don't know if anybody, I don't know what you guys missed right there. I'm sorry. Basically what I was saying is like, you can change the grain response based off of the film size. You can change size, softness, strength, and saturation. You might've been watching that on the screen during that, but like basically I think the cool thing that's different. Hello, hello. All right, I'm going to use my AirPod instead of this. I don't know what's going on. Let's see if that fixes it. Um, but anyway, so sorry guys. Jeez. I don't know what's going on. Technical difficulties. We're like a whole world apart from each other here, trying to figure this out, sharing screens and doing live streams and stuff like that. So just bear with us. But basically, like this grain response, if you guys, I feel like it's cutting in and out, but this grain response is basically over your exposure values here. So you have all of this going on here. This is your shadows, this is your highlights, and this is your midtones, and this is your obviously your shadow midtone area and your shadow highlight area, or your midtone highlight area here. And so like if let's just make this really obvious here. Let's not go too obvious. So if we keep that like that, and I go in here and just watch this highlight midtone area right here. If I go up here and just like crank this up, what's going to happen is that's going to really increase the grain in just that particular area. And so that's not something I use a lot, but that's kind of a cool thing. For some reason, like grain's not showing up a lot in your shadows, and like your actual film is like darker in that particular area. you can actually bump the grain response in that area so it shows up better during that. So that's something kind of cool. That's not something I use a lot, but like that's just something that you can use if you want. The strength normally when I'm doing something, so like this is typically what I'm going to do. Let me just get this back to like whatever the settings are. So like with this, typically I'm going to keep this. I don't go too crazy with it. I like to keep it around 80. And then I might bump the size down just a little bit. I don't want it like freaking out on my screen. Like I don't, I want to add like a vintage cool quality look to my films. But you can see this, hopefully that's translating over the course of this. Like you can see the grain response over all of this. And so going on from there, I don't want to get too hung up on that. Sorry again, guys, for that technical difficulty. I hope that didn't scare you guys off from watching this. But so like right now, this is looking pretty good. Personally, I kind of like warmer highlights. And so maybe I'm going to go in here and just like bump this up into that golden area just a little bit, just like that. So there it is with it. There it is without it. There it is with it. So I don't know if you guys can see the difference, but I can see a difference in that. It's looking a little bit better there. I am going to add a little more contrast between my shadows and my midtones here. And so to do that, I'm going to raise the difference between the two of them. So I'm taking this slider on my midtones, and this is the exposure slider. I'm going to up that just a little bit. I'm going to crunch my shadows down a little bit. Oh, whoa, holy moly. My computer is glitching a little bit too. I think the internet's going to war with us right now, Hennessy. Something I really like about, and this isn't being shown right now, and I promise you this is true, but my computer's being clunky. The smoothness of the sliders in FilmConvert Nitrate blows the last one out of the water. And that's not to knock on FilmConvert, but it's to show the improvement they made with their product. That like beforehand, it was super clunky whenever you would go through and you would try to manipulate the sliders on it. But now it's very smooth. And like if you ever moved your shadow slider beforehand, like up or something like that, it would immediately wash out the image. With this, it's a much more gradient transition. And so I really like that. So this is looking pretty good to me. I might make those midtones a little warmer right there. Looks like we got a little more green than I'm wanting to go on right here. So maybe I'll like lower that just a little bit. Add a little bit more there, magenta. So, okay. And then, so like green, your curves right here. It's basically, if you move this up right here, this is the top of your exposure value. It's an exponential decline of exposure change going down right here. You see, this would be like your shadow midtone area. This would be your midtone highlight area, highlights. You see there's more of a gap between what we just did right here, and exponentially it's going down, changing it. So sometimes I'm wanting to raise my exposure, and then it's going to, make it look exponentially different from the top to the bottom. That's something I could do just to adjust it sometimes. It's not something I'm going to do right now. I'm kind of like where that's sitting. And then levels, you can go in there, and this is kind of another cool way. I like to manipulate contrast with this sometimes. It also kind of shows you where the majority of your image is sitting. A lot of this image is sitting in your shadow midtone area right here. I think my camera's frozen. I don't know, but that doesn't matter as long as my screen is. What is going on? I don't know, but just watch my screen, everybody. You don't need to see me. But this is like showing between the shadows and midtones, there's a lot of information there, and that's okay. That's that, sometimes they say in cinematography that what you can't see is more important than what you can see. So like, it's about guiding the eye into the light that you're wanting to show it. And the light that we're wanting to show is right here, and everything else, like this foreground of the makeup artist, her hands coming around here. That's all just part of making, accentuating the face right there. So that's FilmConvert Nitrate on this shot. I'm going to go and move. I'm going to blast through these a little bit here. So here's another makeup shot. Really like this. Like I said, makeup shots are like super fun for me. It's like there's a ton of creative control during that time. Slap that on there. Go down to Sony, A7S, Mark III, and then S Cinetone. Boom. Not liking how that's looking immediately, but that is okay. I'm going to go in here, change it to the same thing as I did before. Go like that. I'm going to raise my exposure values a little bit. Go like right there. Very crunchy right in here, this transition between her cheek to her nose right there. And so I'm going to go down to color correction.
I'm gonna go and raise those midtones a little bit to open up a little bit. Actually, you know what? The midtones were sitting a little bit more out here than I thought. I'm gonna raise those shadows just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then what I might do is I might go up in here and I'll change the luma value down a little bit. See, that's opening that up a little bit right in here. Go in here, I think it's a little bit magenta, add a little bit of green. I think it's sitting temperature-wise where I want it to be sitting. Oop. I think it's sitting temperature-wise where I want it to be sitting. And then let's see, the last thing I might do, I might go back in here and I might add a little bit of warmth to those highlights. I might go in here and add a little bit of warmth to those midtones. So boom, like that's like about what I'm gonna do on that. Let's just see the before and after. Nothing big, but it kind of, you know, it adds a style to it. I did skip grain there. Let me go back down to my 35 millimeter perf. So that's, you know, a look right there. I really like the shot. The light shooting from the shadow side of her face. I love how that looks. I love the composition of the shot. I love the light on her face. It accentuates what's happening. Really into the shot. So let's go on to the next shot. Here's a detail shot. I think I didn't save that, so I'll do it this time. Go back through, boom, boom, boom. I'm gonna save this so I don't have to do that for the next one. Looking okay, but I'm gonna raise this exposure up a little bit. I am going to suck out just a little bit of that warmth. And it's all about the style that you're going for here. And then I'm going to just kind of play with this, see what happens if I add a little bit of magenta to it. I kind of like how that looks right there. I honestly like how this looks on the KD5207. Let's just see what it looks like on the other one that I was doing. Not a huge difference after doing that, but like look at the difference between before and after right there. Just how much more style that gives that. It just looks incredible to me. And so I'm not seeing the grain as much on this. This is a brighter image. If I pull my IRE scale over into this right here, lots of this image is sitting in the upper region, in your midtones to your exposure level, or to your midtones to your highlights. I go down into my levels here. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that there's gonna be more than before. Yeah, you got more sitting in your midtone to highlights right here. So let's make that grain show up more in that area. So let's pull up our midtones for our grain. See, you can see it popping right now. Pull it up here. Yeah, pull this up a little bit. Yeah, that's awesome. I can see that on my screen. Hopefully you guys can see that too. The difference and what that makes. You can make that grain pop more to be more consistent with the rest of your film. Coolio, detail shot, another detail shot. I'm actually gonna skip that one, but nice shot. Groom shot. Boom, that's just putting Sony a7S Mark III Cinetone camera setting on there. That was quicker. Let's go to my FJ8543 VD. We're gonna just pop up that exposure a little bit, feel a little crunchy right in here. You can manipulate that a couple of different ways. I'm gonna drop that luma level. I like the style of this. I'm gonna keep my chroma the same. Basically, again, the intensity of what the film stock is putting on it. And then, let's see, let's go down into here. I think we could add a little more contrast in other areas though. So I'm gonna bump my highlights a little bit, which is kind of bumping this area and kind of like this light along the edge of his face here going into there. I like how that looks. That looks kind of cool. I'm gonna go up and add a little warmth there. It's a lot. Let me go down. Bump this up a little more. That's got some cool style going on there. I think a little more grain would look cool on here. So a bigger size grain. So going to that 35 millimeter. Perf. Boom. That's a lot, but cool. It's whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want with your film. It's your film. So that's a lot. Blasting through this. Here's a ceremony shot. Yeah, that doesn't look good, but we're going to make it look good. You ready? So we're going to raise our exposure levels. That's too much. I'm going to go and change this film stock so I know what I'm working with here when I'm manipulating it. We got some crunchiness going on in the shadows. I'm going to decrease my warmth just a little bit. I'm going to remove a little magenta from that. And change my contrast levels from that film stock emulation. All right, let's go down to color correction. Let's go ahead and put that 35mm perf on there. I'm blazing through these because I don't want to bore you guys through every single one. I just want to show you different lighting scenarios. And again, I'm just kind of like, I would probably spend more time doing this if I was on my own, but there's a little crunchiness going on there between the shadows and the midtones. So I'm going to raise that up. I feel like her face is like not the focal point right now. That's too much. Let's go back. My computer is lagging a little bit, so bear with me. I promise like the actual program is much less clunky than like what I'm making it look like, but I don't know what the deal is right now. Raising those midtones, maybe want to raise the highlights back up just a little bit. Still a little warm / magenta-y, so I'm gonna pull that down a little more. And it's like, okay, what do I want to do? I'm gonna add a little more warmth in the highlights. There we go. Shadows are a little crushed. My computer is, I'm frustrated with that. My computer's freaking out right now. So I'm just going to change the contrast levels by lowering this just a little bit. Okay, that's looking better to me. As like a base color correction over the course of 45 seconds, that's looking better to me. So that adds some style to it. It's a little bit brighter scenario. Like we got a little peaking here, but like I'm exposing for her face kind of a deal. She's the focal point. So that's what we're going to go for there. So a drone shot, bam. So I do use Matt Harris's with the Film Poets. I use his Skygrades transition LUTs between using D-Log on the Mavic 2 Pro. And you can use that. This is what it looks like when you add it. I bump down the intensity a little bit, but that's just kind of to get it back to, you know, a normal looking look. With drones, I don't necessarily use a camera pack. And as a matter of fact, I'm not going to use the Sony one here. I'm going to go in here, use FilmConvert nitrate, and then I'm going to throw on that FJ8543 that I use. Honestly, that looks pretty cool and pretty filmic to me. Like that looks like some pastel drawing right there. That's beautiful to me. That's out in Aspen right there. A lot of grain to me right now, so I'm going to lower that. Not quite as sharp as the Sony a7S III, so I'm lowering that down right there. I'm kind of tired of my face being frozen right there, so I'm gonna like try to save that. Let's get rid of that. Whatever. You guys aren't gonna see me for a second. It's cool. It's better than seeing my frozen face. So anyway, that looks kind of cool to me. I might raise the exposure just a little bit because again, like even though we got some light leaking in that's filling the exposure here, I do want to accentuate this a little bit more. Don't want to spend too much time on that, but I will do one more here, and that's a portrait with these guys right here. Beautiful looking couple. I'm gonna go in there, add FilmConvert nitrate again. This is a nice cloudy evening. And this will be the last one I do here. Blah, 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 A7S III. And then we will do as Cinetone. Add that in there, kind of crushes your exposure a little bit. Let's change it. Let's go back up a little bit. Right there. So it's almost going up 3/4 of a stop right there. Seems a little blue, maybe a little green. So like I'm just going to boom, bam, bop, add that up a little bit. I might raise this a little more. Something like that. There's some green bouncing around. I might add a little bit of magenta there. Green bouncing around because of all the shrubbery, the trees, stuff like that. And then honestly, let's see. I think the next time I manipulate the exposure, I'm just going to do it down at the wheels. Just a little more manipulation there. Change my strength down to 61. I bump my highlights just a tad. I don't care that her dress is peeking right there because that's nobody's staring at this. That's cool. It's something that adds to it, but they are the focal point. I want them to pop. And so to make them pop, I'm going to raise the highest, brightest point of my image like I just did it a little bit. Add again, just a little bit of warmth right there in the highlights. Just like that. Might add just a little more contrast in the shadows, just a little bit, something like that. Let's go up, add just a little more right there. Cool. And then I looked a little crunchy after doing that, so I'm just gonna lower that chroma or the luma value just a little bit. So anyway, again, we're just adding style to this. We're not trying to make this look completely different right now, but like, look how much more that pops right there. That's a cool look. Like, I like how that looks. So anyway, yeah, guys, this is kind of like a little walkthrough I wanted to do of everything. Sorry for the technical difficulties that I was going through that. I hope you guys were able to kind of ascertain something from that. Again, I feel like if you're ever disappointed with the information that you get, it's probably because like a lot of people think that when you color grading is Pandora's box and that like it's just a secret thing that like the elite know about or something like that. But in reality, it's like it's just nailing it in camera and tweaking it in post, and then honestly the biggest part is like the music and like the way you put your story together, and that's what's going to accentuate your color. And so like this stuff is attainable. It's not as elusive as you think it might be. Like, you know, you can go and add your own LUTs beforehand. I always like to use FilmConvert as like a finishing LUT, so if you have other LUTs you want to use, stack them up. The world's your oyster, your editing suite is your oyster, and nobody's seeing what you're doing behind the scenes. So have fun, experiment, and like I like to say, problem solve. So Hennessy, I know you can't see me right now, but that's kind of what I wanted to go over, and hopefully that was helpful to some people out there.
Oh, and now we've both got some technical difficulties. Oh no.
Can you go back to...
I can hear you. I think I'm back. Absolutely, yeah. I really enjoy talking about this stuff. It reinstills passion back in me, like kind of going back through how I do things, why I do things the way that I do them. And I am very flattered that you guys wanted me to come on. Can you hear me right now? Okay, cool. Just making sure. Yeah. Again, I'll kind of go over it briefly here, but like I made a 17-minute long video on how to book destination weddings a couple months ago. That's something that I send out to each new person that joins our Facebook group, Destination Wedding and Elopement Videographers. If you just type that in on Facebook, you'll find it, and that'll come to you in an email. But basically, like, to book destination weddings, it's kind of a mindset shift of like you are trying, just because you're a wedding videographer doesn't mean you're entitled to be filming these illustrious, awesome weddings that are happening out in Austria or Iceland or something like that. These people are booking something that's a little bit extraordinary. It's different. And so in order to do that, you have to change certain things about your business and your mentality and like what you're willing to do. And so I think everybody's so scared to do stuff for free that it always has to be a fair time compensation. But I did so much for free. And even last year I did a wedding for free because it was going to help my portfolio out. And so even someone that's been doing this for years, you have to figure out, like, I think that destination wedding videographers have to be passionate about what you're doing. So because why are you going to fly to go do these things and spend 3 times the amount of time filming these weddings when you could just film a local wedding? You have to love what you're doing if you want to get into destination weddings. It's not about looking cool, because that's not going to carry you over. You actually have to enjoy what you're doing. But again, the best advice you're going to find, There's no clickbait on that video. If you follow what I say to do in my how to book destination weddings video on my YouTube channel, I promise you, you will book destination weddings. You just have to go do the thing. It's not going to fall into your lap. You have to go and put yourself out there and be vulnerable and be okay with failing, because you do. But to win, you have to fail, and that's okay. So that's kind of my advice if I had to give it. Yeah, so I am most active on my Instagram at Films by Stanton, Stanton. You can pop on there. I am very active in my Destination Wedding Elopement Videographers group, admittedly, because of the craziness of the 2021 season, excuse me, wedding season here in America. The weddings did pick back up. Despite COVID and everything happening, I have been slammed and I've been having to focus on my clients, which is a good thing, but I am picking back up, making new content. I'm going to be putting out a pricing for destination weddings tutorial. We're going to be doing more film reviews, stuff like that. But Destination Wedding Elopement Videographers Facebook group is a great place to be for, getting different wedding leads, getting I post referrals in there for, Mexico weddings, Yosemite weddings, different things like that. If I get a wedding that might be under budget or I'm booked for, I'm going to post it in that group. And so that doesn't always happen, but from time to time it does. And so it's a great place to be. But above all else, if you want to get better at this, just try and put yourself out there and watch YouTube videos and fail, and just it'll come to you. If you're passionate about it and you give it a chance, I think passion follows suit with people that pursue it. So yeah, that's kind of like what I would advise in regards to that. Yes, yeah. So I think FilmConvert's audio is freaking out right now. We're having technical difficulties. If you haven't ascertained that by now, but they really wanted to thank those people that joined to watch us today. This is going to be on their channel after the fact, and so you will be able to skip through all the audio mess ups and stuff like that. But they want to thank you for being here, for hearing my story, for getting to meet Hennessy and get to know them. They're extremely down-to-earth people that are working on the other side of this incredibly awesome plugin for for Adobe Premiere, for Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, things like that. So please reach out to them if you have questions. You can go to their website at filmconvert.com and you can download, they have Cinematch, which will download different it will match different things between drones, and it'll between drones and a camera, or if you're shooting on two different cameras, it can match those looks together. Pretty powerful. I'll be doing a tutorial on that as well here in the next coming months. But go get this program. It's pretty cool. You're not going to regret using it. I use it in every film, and I think it makes my stuff look better and higher quality. And so with that, I feel like FilmConvert's audio isn't working for some reason, but they're thankful you guys are here, and hopefully this was helpful to you guys. If it was helpful to you guys, let them know, let us know, comment, post a story, something like that. We're not doing it for clout. We're doing it so we can help people out. So post on your Instagram stories if you watch this, post on Facebook, whatever it might be, give them a follow, give me a follow, whatever it might be. I think we're both on the same page of wanting to go help those that are out there watching this. So anyway, I guess with that, I might be closing this because of the audio thing. So thank you guys. Hit me up on Instagram if you have questions, if you want to talk. You got I do mentor sessions, all these different things. I want to help you guys get better at this. Wedding videography is awesome. It doesn't have to be boring and weird. You can be cool and do wedding videography. Not to say I am, but trying to be. But anyway, thanks guys for watching, and looking forward for you guys to come back for the next FilmConvert live stream.